man. Chapter 688. Man, this is a crucial chapter, yo. Like, damn. I legit felt bad reading this chapter. Like, God, man. Like, this chapter, like with the whole thing of human experimentation and everything, like, this, to put this in a real world perspective for you, right? This is like finding out what happens with chickens, right? Like if you found out what they did like at Tyson plants and how they got chickens and all that, you would never want to eat chickens again if you found out what actually happened on those farms. And I eat meat, don't get me wrong, I eat meat, but it's kind of that reaction. Like I don't eat chicken now that I know what happens there. And so I say that to say, when you read this chapter and you see how Mocha sacrificed herself for all the other kids. And you see how she's having a flashback to their dreams about how they want to go out to sea, how they want to be adults, how when they're 20, they're going to do this and this and this and this. And you just see each of those kids, the hope in their eyes and the expressions that they're drawn with. And then you see Mocha coughing up the blood. And you see Chopper just being eaten away on the inside by all of this. Man, when I tell you that just hit me, that hit me hard. That hit me really hard. And it just shows you, right? Like if you just think back to Drum Island, okay? Like when Chopper first debuted, when you think back to Drum Island about how Chopper, when we first got introduced to him, he was, healing the goddess that is Nami. He was healing her, making her better, restoring her to her magnificent glory. But when you think back to that, right? Chopper, anytime he got a little bit of praise, he just ran off. And then you look at his growth now and you just see him. And Chopper is doing his best to save her. And I wonder if in that moment, right? If in that moment when Chopper sees Mocha and she's just writhing in pain, I wonder if it was Chopper thinking about Dr. Hero Look, right? And I think that's his name, Hero Look. I called him the Quack Doctor, right? I wonder if it was Dr. Hero Look. I wonder if Chopper was thinking back to that because, with him, he took the medicine that Chopper made, even though he knew it was poison. And with Chopper, it was in that moment when Dr. Kureha was explaining to him what happened that Chopper understood that as a doctor, you have life and death in your hands. And Chopper, up until this point, you could say like he's been successful in bringing back his patients, but it was at this time where Chopper had given a promise where it looked like Chopper was actually going to lose somebody, and that is huge. That's absolutely huge because it's in that moment that you really feel as if Chopper is about to go through a downward spiral, right? And what I love about this is One Piece, the way Oda is writing it, we're getting character development in each chapter for each different character. And for Chopper, this was huge. This was huge because so often in shonens, you hear so much emphasis placed on the story about how the main character can save this or the support character can save this person. Their goals are always attainable. Well, in this one, you look at it and all of a sudden, everything in it is black and white anymore. And that's, man, when I tell you that is good, that is like some Stan Lee writing Peter Parker type shit. Like that is good. That's good because like with Marvel, you had all this stuff where all these different characters are super overpowered, but Spider-Man had student loans. Spider-Man had bills to pay. Spider-Man was fucking broke, but he was a superhero. And there was always that gray area there. There was always that struggle. There was stuff outside of his control. And with Chopper, you're seeing that. And you see Chopper again, going back to Drum Island, and you see what Oda did here. On Drum Island, Chopper was alone. And he couldn't take praise. He had Dr. Kureha, but anytime he got on his own, he couldn't really take it. He's always running and hiding, right? Well, in this chapter, he's having to rely on Nami. He's having to rely on Nico Robin. He's having to rely on Sanji and all the G5 Marines that are with him. and the medical staff. He's having to rely on people. Somebody who was a loner at first, like even before he met Dr. Kureha and Hirolook, because of the devil fruit he had, he was an outcast. Now look at Chopper. He's relying on people. He's got people helping him. He's got friends. Man, that is like the most beautiful stuff ever. Like, I know a lot of people say, One Piece, the pacing's too slow and it doesn't really move in the way that it should. And like, I remember when people were trying to get me to go into One Piece, and like, just read the first 200 chapters. The first 200 chapters, once you get to it, man, I'm telling you, it's going to get so good. I remember going, the first 200 fucking chapters of a manga. What the fuck are you guys on? But I get it. I get it because of how slow paced Oda writes, but there's so much to unpack in each chapter. Like, if I were doing a thorough chapter review, right? I was going completely in depth and I just sat down and I wrote down all my thoughts, right? These videos could easily be 30 minutes. And you guys know, like, I'm prone to give you a 30-minute chapter review depending on how hype something gets. So, I mean, I know that. Like, I absolutely know that. And, like, I totally see why a lot of people like reading the One Piece manga and not so much watching the anime. Maybe I'm a little biased because I don't like the anime, but this is really good. This is really good. And so, like, when the G5 Marines are picking up Mocha, right? And they're carrying her to the examination room. And Chopper, he's just wiping away the tears, man. That is some of the most beautiful shit that I've seen in this arc so far. Like, that is absolutely beautiful. And, I do want to say this. I do like what Oda did here. This chapter was very Chopper focused. And I'm going to get onto the Zoro and Tashigi thing in a moment because I do have something that I feel is important to say about that. But I do like what you got there, it being Chopper focused. But I like how with Nami and Nico Robin, we see both of them fighting and doing their best to hold back these kids. So when the kids circle around, neither one of those women gave up. Like that's one of my biggest gripes about reading Naruto, right? With Naruto, with the exception of Tsunade, in the manga, every female that's a part of the main cast is a damsel in distress. Like, Sakura had that one moment where she fought against Sasori and she's kicking ass. And then the rest of the time, she's a fucking damsel in distress. Even during the war arc, when she was put on the same level as Naruto and Sasuke before they got their buffs, right? Even then, after the fact, she's a damsel in distress and she's got to be saved from Madoru Uchiha. Like, I hated that. But I like how in this chapter, Nico Robin and Nami, they don't do a lot, but they do just enough to let you know that, yes, they're females, but they're pulling their weight. And I'm going to use this as a transition to get into the whole thing with Zoro, because Tashigi wrongfully thinks that Zoro thinks women are weaker. And yet, look at his crew. Look at his crew. He has 2 women in his crew who pull their own weight in a battle. And therefore, you know that Zoro knows that women aren't weak because he's got 2 examples in his crew that women aren't weak. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. And I like how the chapters just go one after the other. And so you can tell Oda, when they say Oda plans every little small thing, you see it in these fucking chapters. That is beautiful. That is some beautiful writing. Now, I have to talk about this Zoro and Tashigi thing, right? I like how Zoro, when he's carrying her around, right? And Tashigi's like, I only got a little dizzy. And Zoro says, like, I don't give a damn about your pride. I ain't letting you down. You're slowing me down. And Zoro's carrying her over her shoulder. And right when she says this is a pain in the butt, right? She looks and says, oh, is this the legendary sword? And Zoro's just like, if you don't shut up. Like, bitch, if you don't shut up. Like, this is my sword. Don't touch it. I almost feel like that's foreshadowing. And the reason why I say that is, like, when we first got introduced to Tashigi, I almost butchered her name for some reason. When we first got introduced to her, she's looking for swords. Zoro's quest to be the greatest swordsman, all right? And she has knowledge over all these blades, and Zoro has this cursed sword. And if I'm not mistaken, that should be the sword that when he got it, he said that this one isn't behaving properly, or either that, or yeah, that's the sword that wasn't behaving properly. And this is what I found interesting, right? When you take all this into consideration, there's going to be a sword later on down the line that's probably going to connect these two. And I wonder if that's going to be what causes them to go fist to cuffs later on down in the story. That's going to be really interesting, because if you look at the Straw Hats, right now, the Kobe and Luffy dynamic, they got somebody that they kind of, mix it up with, right? Luffy and Kobe, they're rivals. Or let's just take a step further. Luffy and Smoker. They have Zoro and Tashigi, right? It's gonna be really interesting on that. And hell, even Luffy and Kobe and Zoro and Helmeppo, they are building rivalries with people who are in the Navy, but at the same time, they're being built up for something else. You can't really tell where Oda's taking it, but there is a connection between Luffy and Smoker and Zoro and Tashigi, because it's not by mistake that they keep meeting each other. Excuse me. So I want to end it off with this, right? By this point in the story, what were your thoughts about Chopper's character arc? Let me know down in the comment section. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, share. Thank you so much for watching to the end of the video, guys. Have an incredible day.